Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 9th chapter, text 51. 51 I will read for myself, 52 will repeat. Magavam yato badram vo dadyancham rishisattama vidya vrata tapasharam gatram yachatamam chiram. Please repeat the translation. O Magavan, Indra, all good fortune unto you. I advise you to approach the exalted saint, Dadyancha, Dadichi. He has become very accomplished in knowledge, vows and austerities, and his body is very strong. Go ask for his body without delay. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Purport. Everyone in this material world, from Lord Brahma down to the ant, is eager to keep the body comfortable. A pure devotee may also be comfortable, but is not eager for such benediction. Since Magavan, the king of heaven, still aspired for a comfortable bodily situation, Lord Vishnu advised him to ask Dadyancha for his body, who was very strong due to his knowledge, vows, and austerity. Text 52. Savai adigato dadyam ashvibhyam brahma nishkalam yadva ashvashiro nama tayo amaratam vyadhat. Translation and purport by Divine Gazeti Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. That saintly Dadyancha, who is also known as Dadichi, personally assimilated the spiritual science and then delivered it to the Ashwina Kumaras. It is said that Dadyancha gave the mantras through the head of a horse. Therefore, the mantras are called Ashwa Sira. After obtaining the mantras of spiritual science from Dadichi, the Ashwini Kumaras became Jivan Mukta, liberated even in this life. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The following story is narrated by many acharyas in commentaries. It's a big Sanskrit verse, I'm going to skip that. The great sage Dadichi had perfect knowledge of how to perform fruity activities, and he had advanced spiritual knowledge as well. Knowing this, the Ashwini Kumaras once approached him and begged him to instruct them in spiritual science, Brahma Vidya. Dadichi Muni replied, I am now engaged in arranging sacrifice for fruity activities. Come back sometime later. When the Ashwini Kumaras left, Indra, the king of heaven, approached Dadichi and said, My dear Muni, the Ashwini Kumaras are only physicians. Please do not instruct them in spiritual science. If you impart the spiritual science to them, despite my warning, I shall punish you by cutting off your head. After warning Dadichi in this way, Indra returned to heaven. The Ashwini Kumaras, who understood Indra's desire, returned and begged Dadichi for Brahma Vidya. When the great saint Dadichi informed them of Indra's threat, the Ashwini Kumaras replied, Let us first cut off your head and replace it with the head of a horse. You can instruct Brahma Vidya through the horse head. And when Indra returns and cuts off that head, we shall reward you and restore your original head. Since Dadichi had promised to impart Brahma Vidya to Ashwini Kumaras, he agreed to their proposal. Therefore, because Dadichi imparted Brahma Vidya through the mouth of a horse, this Brahma Vidya is also known as Ashva Sira. Thus in the Bhaktivedanta purport. So in this chapter, we are going to come to the end of this chapter, appearance of Vritasura. So, to recap this, we read in the summary also, Indra killed Vishwarupa. Because of this, he was a Brahmana. So his father Tvashta did a yajna, homa. And we read also, the mantras were chanted wrongly or irregularly. So when we chant these mantras, if we don't chant properly, actually we'll get negative result. That's what happened here. So Vritasura appeared from the yajna. And it is mentioned in the earlier verses, he was very fierce, very fearful. He had a very fierce features and made the world afraid. So that was the situation. Then the Devatas, as usual, they went to Lord Vishnu. They offered the prayers, wonderful prayers. Then we know how Lord appeared. And that time, the Devatas could have asked for, Prabhupada mentioned last 2-3 verses we have been hearing, they could have asked for pure devotional service. But they didn't ask for. Because Devatas, they have the tinge of material desire. Though they are all devotees of Lord Vishnu, they have material desire. So they wanted to kill this Vritasura. Because Vritasura, when the fight happened in the early verses, we read that the Vritasura was so fearful, so powerful, he swallowed many of these weapons also. So this Asura, and this happened actually at the end of, we'll be reading in continuation, next chapter will begin in a couple of verses. We'll be reading that. It happened at the end of Treta Yuga, end of Satya Yuga and beginning of Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga. End of Satya Yuga and beginning of Treta Yuga, this incident happened. See, those days the Asuras were very powerful actually. So always we read the battle between demigod and the Asuras, correct? So sometimes demigods are victorious, sometimes demons are victorious because they're very powerful. So here the situation is like that. So seeing this, that's why Prabhupada in the first, so they were not asking for pure devotional service. They had the desire. So Lord makes an arrangement. So in the first verse what we read today, it is mentioned, Lord mentioned Vishnu, all good fortune unto you. I advise you to approach exalted Saint Dadyachana Dadichi. He has become very accomplished in knowledge, actually in Brahma Vidya, in spiritual knowledge, vows and austerities. So these munis, they were all very well situated. They were aspiring for spiritual knowledge. They go to a bona fide spiritual master and get this. And they are performing lot of tapasyas, vow, determination and austerities. And because of this, and his body was very strong. So Lord is saying, go ask for his body without delay. So in that small purport, Prabhupada writes in the beginning, everyone in this material world, from Lord Brahma down to the ant, is eager to keep his body comfortable. We also, if we have some small heat or some blood coming out, we get hurt. We get disturbed, correct? When you are chanting, when you are doing even service, throughout the day, our attention will go there. Because we want to keep our body comfortable. And particularly devotees also, even karmis, like we read earlier, because they want to keep the body comfortable so that they want to enjoy their senses to the maximum extent. They want to gratify their senses. But then Prabhupada writes there, a pure devotee may also be comfortable, but he is not eager for such benediction. Since Indra still aspired for a comfortable bodily situation. See, just like we know when Dhruva Maharaj was also offering prayers, he did tapasya, and Lord personally came. He had darshan of Lord within 6 months. He was just 5-year-old boy. When Lord asked, why you are taking so much austerity? What do you want? Actually, he was aiming for a kingdom better than his father, because his father insulted him. So then, when he saw Lord, totally it all changed. So he said, I was looking for a piece of glass. Now I got a most valuable gem. I don't want anything, Lord. That is actually pure devotional service. So the Devatas, they are not in that platform. So Lord Vishnu advised him to go and ask Dadichi for his body, which was very strong due to his knowledge, vow and austerity. That was the first verse. So in last 2-3 verses we read also in the verse and even in the purport Prabhupada says, see, if a ignorant child goes and asks his mother to give what? Poison. Mother will not give poison, correct? Poison can kill the child. But the child does not know that. Similarly, we are all looking for sense gratification, which is a poison. Because repeatedly we have to take birth, death, old age, disease. Repeatedly we have to take this. The samsara chakra, the cycle of birth and death will continue again and again. So that was one example. One more example, what was given in the previous purport, that if a suffering person, when you go to a physician, when you go to a doctor, you may be desiring to have certain food, but the physician is saying for your well-being, he wants you to be cured of the disease, so he will not advise you to take that food. So like that, this sense gratification, what we are all looking for in this conditioned life, in this material world, it's actually entangling us. We have to repeatedly take birth, then finally die. Again, this goes on. So in the second verse, it's very interesting actually. It is mentioned, the saintly Dadyancha, who is also known as Dadiji, personally assimilated the spiritual science and then delivered to Ashwini Kumara. So this Dadichi, we'll read little about Dadichi also. So he learned the spiritual science from Athavaram. Athavara Veda, what is that? Yes. So he got the spiritual knowledge from Athavaram. It is there in the next summary also. Next chapter summary it is mentioned. So it is said that Dadichi gave them mantras through the head of the horse. Because you see here, when you are reading it is looking little funny. But this Muni, they can, because they have this spiritual teja, spiritual knowledge, Brahma knowledge, so they know what Indra is looking for. So he made that arrangement. Therefore the mantras are called Ashwasira, because the mantra came from the head of a horse. After obtaining the mantras of spiritual science from Dadichi, the Ashwini Kumaras became Jivan Mukta. So the whole point is, particularly in the human form of life, we should try to acquire this spiritual knowledge. So when you get this Brahman knowledge, Brahman, we are all spirit soul, we are all part and parcel of Krishna, our duty is to serve the Lord. When you get all this knowledge, then though we are living in this conditioned life, though we are in material existence, actually we are all called as Jivan Mukta, because we are liberated, because our mind, our body and words should be engaged in the service of the Lord. So, so that Prabhupada very nicely begins the purport saying, the following story is narrated by many acharyas in the commentaries. Then he explains that say, if we are supposed to read all these Sanskrit verses and all, we can't figure out what is what, correct? What is the meaning, what is all about. So Prabhupada immediately translates very nicely. So, About Dadichi Muni, it is mentioned actually, I was browsing, some interesting facts are there. One of the greatest virtues of mankind is helping those who are in need. See, similarly, when even amongst the devotees, when we are in some difficulties, when our younger devotees or anybody going through some tough time, we should try to help them spiritually. Because in this material world, we'll always go through this turbulence will be there. Not that everything will be very nice. Even for a devotee, if you're aspiring bhakta, if you want to do devotional service also, lot of difficulties will come. So, it is mentioned about the Dadichi Muni, one of the greatest virtues of mankind is helping those in need. So, this refers to selflessness actually. Generally, we are all selfish, correct? We are concerned about ourselves. Or maybe our extended family and all. So, when we are joined Prabhupada's mission, we should also be selfish in the sense we should extend our help to our devotees, friends, or colleagues who are there. So that way, we'll actually attract the Lord's attention. So, another thing mentioned about this is, see, when Dadichi Muni, understanding the situation, what was going on between the Devatas and the Asuras, agreed to protect the weapon despite the danger of his own life. Because we read earlier, they are shooting bow and arrows. Vritasura is just following that actually. So Indra and all the demigods, they are all puzzled what to do. So when that's why they offered prayer and they were directed here. And here it is said, the demons tried relentlessly to retrieve the weapons and harm the sage, but they failed. So what he did, as time passed, the Devatas did not return. Because in the purport, Prabhupada writes, correct, when this Devatas, Indra, headed by Devatas, went to meet Dadichi, he was performing some yajna for Karma Kanda, in Karma Kanda. So he said, I'm doing this now, right now, and you better go and come back. So but the Devatas never returned. So Dadichi was also a little puzzled. So as time passed, the Devatas did not return. Dadichi devised a way to protect the weapon permanently. Because if he keeps the weapon also, maybe the demons will come and take it away. Asuras will come and take it away. So he made a very clever, inventive solution. It is mentioned there. Used his divine power, Dadichi placed the weapons in a sacred water pot, mixed them with water and drank it. Just like you have a water pot, you keep some weapon and you drink. So because of the power actually, so he swallowed it actually. This act allowed him to safeguard weapon within his own body while continuing his penance undisturbed. See, the sage, they are all very fixed in vow, in sacrifice, in tapasya. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita also, if you see 2.51 and 56, in those two purport, Prabhupada also writes actually. That 2.51, it's a very famous verse. Karmajam buddhi yukta hai palam taktva manishina janma bandha vinurmukta padam gachanti anamayam. The wise engaged in devotional service take refuge in the Lord and free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action in the material world. In this way, they attain In this way, they can attain the state beyond all miseries. So this is the 51st verse. 56th verse also is very famous verse. Dukeshu anudvignamana sukeshu bigataspara vitaraga bayakroda sitadir muni uchyate. What is this sitadir muni? So muni and here sitadir muni. One who is not disturbed in spite of threefold miseries and who is not elated when there is happiness and who is free from attachment, fear and anger. He is called a sage of steady mind. So they take a lot of tapasya, austerity, because in the human form of life only we can take this tapasya. What is the tapasya? Prabhupada has given us very simple tapasya. Prabhupada mentions himself. What is that we have to do? We have to chant Hare Krishna mantra, 16 rounds Prabhupada has prescribed, and we try to follow 4 regulative principles and do our morning sadhana program. That is the simple tapasya actually. You read in all throughout the Vedic literature, there are so many tapasyas. Hiranyakashipu, what he did, standing on one leg for many years. We have not been asked to do all those things, correct? Our tapasya is very simple. And it's very jolly also. Devotional service is very jolly. Susukam kartam avyayam. So we have to push. Our body may give some miseries actually. But we should understand this material body means miseries will be there. So that is the tapasya. We have to go. Tapasya means voluntarily accepting some inconvenience for our own good, for our spiritual good. So we have to push. Tapo divyam putraka ena sattvam shuddhayet brahma saukyam tam anantam. Rishabdev also is instructing his 100 sons in the 5th canto. Tapo divyam. When you take tapasya, you will get the transcendental knowledge. Simple thing is we are not this body. Repeatedly we are reading, hearing, all these things, correct? So when it comes to our body miseries, so we should push, we should try. We should take association from devotees. How to get away? Everybody is going through the same thing. So this tapasya we should do actually. And we can do only in the human form of life. We can't, Prabhupada gives the example, correct? You can assemble maybe 10 dogs. Tell them, you keep quiet for 1 hour, then we'll give food. No, they'll fight with each other actually. So that is the nature of the animal. They can't do all this thing. So we have to go extra mile for our spiritual benefit. Then it is mentioned that, eventually, the Devatas play, Dadichi, eventually the Devatas returned to ask Dadichi for their weapon. The sage explained that he had waited for a long time and thinking that they would not return, had swallowed the weapons. Desperate, the Devatas pleaded, Dadichi, we need our weapon to fight the demon and save Dharma and the universe. So like that it is mentioned. Then what Dadichi is offering is, he last this. Moved by their plight, Dadichi agreed to help. He explained that the weapon were now part of his bones. Because he had drunk water, so we can't perceive all these things. This was all happening in the previous yugas, correct? We can only drink water. But the sages, they can do all these things, miracles, wonders actually. It's all recorded in the scriptures. So, he explained that the weapons are now part of his bones and the only way to retrieve them was through his death. Already the Indra and other demigod, they were in trouble because they killed Vishwarupa. All this trouble started from there. So, the Devatas, horrified at the thought of killing a great sage, refused. Correct? Because all this story has come, all this in the historically it is recorded. Because of that, they killed Vishwarupa. So, understanding the urgency, what Dadichi did, Dadichi created a huge fire, entered it, and reduce the body to ashes. The Devatas were bewildered by his selfless act. At that moment, Lord Brahma appeared and transformed Dadiji's bone into Vajra, the thunder. But the Vajra made from his backbone, which was given to Lord Indra, with this weapon, the Devatas again fought and won the battle. So like that, so selflessness is one of the very important characteristics of even a devotee is also. We should be not very meager, we should not be miser, we should be broad-minded. We read in the previous verse also, correct? Like Prabhupada explained about the Brahmana and the Kripana. Kripana is just interested about himself, whereas Brahmana is broad-minded, he wants to help others. So there are many examples of selflessness in the scriptures we can recall actually. Lord Rama giving up the throne and kingdom to fulfill the duty and responsibility. See, Lord Rama, of course, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but there are other examples also. Next day he was to be enthroned in Ayodhya. All the devotees, all the inhabitants, they are all very eager to see him. But we know all the tricks, what happened in Ramayana. And he was sent to the forest. And he very pleasingly accepted that. So, because Lord is demonstrating these things actually. Then the Bhagavatam gives the example of Shibi Maharaj. He was offering his own flesh to save whose life? Pigeon's life. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. For a small pigeon, a bird, Shibi Maharaj actually offered his own flesh. Then the example of Karna. Karna giving away his divine armor and earring to Indra, in spite of knowing well in advance that he will be vulnerable in the battle. See, that's why Brahmana in the Bhagavad Gita also in the early first, I think in the first chapter itself, Prabhupada even mentioned this Dronacharya, for example. Anybody going to him for a vidya, for fighting, learning the art of military science? Maybe he knows, because Dronacharya, they are all pure devotees. They know that he will attack him, but they will not bother. You have this knowledge, anybody coming for that knowledge, you just give it up. Because the simple fact is, the person who are advanced in spiritual knowledge, pure devotees particularly, they know we are going to die. Today, tomorrow, or after some years, 100 years, say 100 years. So they are not bothered. Okay, later on he will become king, he will attack me, I will be killed. No. Somebody is coming and begging, asking, we give it away actually. So this is one. Then Bali Maharaj, we all know the story of Bali Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj, he even disobeyed his spiritual master. Who was his spiritual master? Shukracharya. And he agreed to give 3 steps of land to Lord Vamana. Because Shukracharya knew, if he is going to do that, Lord will take away everything. And what he will do? Because he was actually, Prabhupada in those purport also he explained that he was a seminal spiritual master. So they are concerned about their own well-being. But Bali Maharaj, that's why he became Bali Chakravarti. Became a very powerful king, correct? Prahlad, you take Prahlad Maharaj. He was forgiving his own father. Like we all know in this pastime that Hiranyakashipu put him in so many torture, his own son Prahlad Maharaj. But Prahlad was always remembering the Lord. And he was depending on Lord. So he was not bothered. Finally, when Lord himself asked, what benediction you want, my dear Prahlad? So Prahlad said, you please deliver my father. He has acted in ignorance. So in that pastime also we see. And one more example is mentioned is about Vibhishana. brother of Ravana, and he abandoned his family and kingdom and he joined Lord Ramachandra's side. And he knew very well it would be a downfall for his family. But no. So they will all be following the dharmic principle. These are all mentioned in the scriptures. So that is what is driving these personalities. As we see here about Dadichi Muni, we'll hear more about this. Who was Dadichi Muni and what is this? His full characteristics in this is seen in the next chapter also. So these are the few things that very important principle is taught in this lesson is about selflessness. So we should not be concerned about our own well-being. See, if you see Srila Prabhupada's life also, he took so much austerity, and we were hearing on Tuesday that association from Suvekta Prabhu. He went to so many, his own disciples, they were creating so many disturbances. But he was so compassionate. He wanted to deliver them. He wanted to engage them somehow or other. So he was very well situated in Vrindavan, but he went to America, and we know that how Prabhupada, because a pure devotee, he can't see the suffering of the other living entity. So that is their mission. So we should get inspiration from all these examples, and we should pursue our spiritual life with the path of here. It's mentioned that so tapasya, vidya, vrata, tapa, sharam. So this is the essence actually. Vrata, vow, tapa, austerity, vidya, spiritual knowledge. We should cultivate the spiritual. These are the essence in this life actually. I'll stop here. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.